The buzzards knew before Eli did. 3 of them circled lazy spirals against the white-hot Texas sky, their shadows crossing the dust trail like omens. Eli Thompson pulled his horse to a stop, one hand drifting to the rifle on his saddle. In this country, buzzards meant death, fresh or coming. The oak tree stood alone where the trail bent toward Dust Creek, its gnarled branches reaching like broken fingers. Something hung from the trunk, not hung tied. A person. Eli's jaw tightened. He'd learned long ago that trouble and good deeds were twins born of the same bloody labor. Every instinct screamed to ride past, to pretend the desert heat had conjured a mirage. But the buzzards dropped lower. He dismounted, boots hitting packed earth with finality. 20 yards away now, close enough to see rope, close enough to see the wooden sign hanging from her neck, close enough to read it. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching. From now, let's continue with the story. Eli Thompson had killed his first man at 19. It's about 25. He'd worn a marshal's star and buried a wife. Now, at 37. He lived in a shack that leaked when it rained and owned exactly 3 possessions worth mentioning a horse named Redemption. A Colt revolver he hadn't fired in 10 years, and a photograph he kept face down on a shelf because looking at it hurt worse than broken ribs. The shack sat 5 miles outside Dust Creek, far enough that the town's whispers couldn't reach him. He worked cattle for ranchers who paid in coins and didn't ask questions. $3 a month, enough for coffee, beans, and the kind of silence that felt like punishment. People said he'd gone soft after Martha died. They were wrong. He'd gone hollow. Martha Thompson had been beautiful in ways the town couldn't see past her clubfoot. She limped when she walked, dragged her left leg like an anchor, and the good Christian folk of Dust Creek never let her forget it. Cripple, gimp, Marshall's broken doll. They said it behind gloved hands at church, loud enough for her to hear, quiet enough to deny. Eli had believed love could silence cruelty. He'd been a fool. He found her on a Tuesday morning, hanged in the barn, her body swaying gentle as a prayer. The note was worse than the rope. I can't be your burden anymore. Eli, they're right about me. He'd quit the marshal's office that same day. Couldn't uphold law in a town that legislated cruelty with smiles and Sunday hymns. The star went in a drawer, the gun went in his belt, unfired, and Eli went into the desert, looking for a kind of death that took longer than rope. 10 years of slow dying had taught him one truth. Other people's suffering wasn't his business anymore. He'd tried saving someone once. The world had punished him for it. So when he saw the girl tied to the oak tree, every nerve in his body screamed to mount Redemption and ride. The horse was aptly named. Eli had bought him from a widow whose husband had been hanged for murder. The animal had belonged to the dead man, and Eli figured they both understood what it meant to carry ghosts. But there were the buzzards, and there was the sign hanging from the girl's neck, crude letters burned into wood. Nobody needs me anymore. Eli stood 10 feet away, knife already in his hand, though he didn't remember drawing it. The girl's head hung forward, dark hair obscuring her face. Rope bound her wrists behind the tree, bound her ankles, bound her to this spot like a sacrifice to something older and meaner than God. As her chest moved, barely, but it moved. Damn it, Eli whispered to no one, to the buzzards, To Martha's ghost. He cut the ropes. The girl collapsed into his arms like dead weight, unconscious or surrendered. He couldn't tell which. She was heavy. The town would have called her fat, would have made it the first and only thing about her. Eli just knew she was alive, and now that was his problem. He looked at redemption. The horse stared back with patient, knowing eyes. "Yeah," Eli said, "I know." Oh, the girl didn't speak for 3 days. Eli laid her on his bed, the only bed, a thin mattress stuffed with prairie grass that crackled when she breathed. He slept on the porch where the night air bit through his shirt and made his bones ache. Small penance for a decision he already regretted. On the second morning, she woke screaming. Eli burst through the door to find her pressed against the wall, eyes wild, searching for the rope that wasn't there anymore. He froze in the doorway, hands visible, palms out. "You're safe," he said. The words felt like lies. Nobody was safe, not really. She stared at him with the hollow gaze of someone who'd already died once and resented being brought back. Her silence had weight to it, thick as August heat. Eli filled a tin cup with water from the barrel outside. His hands were steady years of practice, keeping them that way. He set the cup on the small table between them and backed toward the door. "I'll be outside. You need anything? Holler?" She didn't holler. But when he checked an hour later, the cup was empty. By the third day, Eli had established a rhythm that felt less like hospitality and more like tending a wounded animal. He brought water. He made weak soup from potatoes and wild onions he'd foraged near the creek. He gave her his portions and ate stale bread that tasted like penance. She watched him with dark, unreadable eyes, taking the soup, drinking the water, never speaking. On the fourth morning, Eli woke to find her standing in the doorway of the shack, one hand braced against the frame. Her legs shook with the effort of holding herself upright. Dehydration and days without food had left her weak as a newborn calf. "Need the outhouse," she said. First words. Her voice came out scraped raw, like she'd swallowed the rope instead of wearing it. Eli pointed to the small structure 20 yards behind the shack. She took one step. 2? Then her knees buckled. He caught her before she hit the ground, his hands firm on her arms, and felt her entire body go rigid with fear. He released her immediately, stepping back. "Sorry, I'll just—" "You take your time." She nodded, jaw set with determination that reminded him painfully of Martha. That same stubborn refusal to accept weakness. That same pride that the world loved to break. When she returned, moving slow as winter, she lowered herself into one of his 2 chairs and stared at the scarred wooden table. Why? The question came out flat, not grateful, not curious, just tired. "Why what? Why'd you cut me down?" Eli poured coffee into his only cup and set it in front of her. He'd a drink from the pot. Couldn't not. Everyone else rode past that tree for 2 days. Her voice carried no accusation, just fact. Cold and certain as creek stones. I counted the horse, 17. They all kept riding. I ain't everyone else. You should have left me. She wrapped both hands around the cup, absorbing its warmth. I'm nothing but trouble, an ugly burden besides. The words came out practiced, like she'd heard them so many times they'd become scripture. Eli's jaw tightened. He'd heard similar words in Martha's suicide note, and they'd haunted him for 10 years. "Don't talk about yourself that way," he said, sharper than he meant to. She looked up, something flickering in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or anger. It's what everyone says. Everyone's wrong. You don't know me. Don't need to. I know that sign was a lie. Eli sat in the other chair, the wood creaking under his weight. "Nobody needs me anymore. That what it said?" She nodded, staring into the coffee. "Well, it was wrong. You're needed. You just ain't been looking in the right places." "And where's that? Where's the right place for someone like me?" Eli thought about his shack with its leaking roof and empty shelves, thought about 10 years of slow suicide by loneliness, thought about Martha swinging in the barn because the world convinced her she wasn't enough. "Here's a start," he said quietly. "You're needed here, even if it's just to prove that damn sign wrong." She studied him for a long moment, searching for deception and finding only exhaustion that matched her own. Finally, she took a sip of coffee. It was bitter and weak, but she drank it anyway. "My name's Sarah," she said. "Sarah Miller. Eli Thompson." "Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for the rope, for this." She gestured vaguely at the shack, the coffee, the complicated mercy of being saved. "Just Eli, and you can thank me by staying alive. That'll be payment enough." Sarah nodded slowly, something fragile and fierce taking root behind her eyes. "I'll try. Trying's all any of us got." On the 8th day, the lawyer came. Eli was mending fence wire when he heard hooves. His hand dropped instinctively to where his gun belt used to hang before he remembered he'd left it inside. Old habits died hard as men. The rider was older, 60-some, wearing a suit too clean for honest work. A leather satchel hung from his saddle horn. Eli recognized him, Carlton Hayes, Dust Creek's only lawyer, a man who made his living off other people's misfortunes. "Looking for Miss Sarah Miller," Hayes called out, not dismounting. "Heard she might be here. What's your business with her?" "Legal matter. Her father Horace passed 5 days ago. Heart attack." The words hung in the hot air. Behind Eli, the shack door opened. Sarah stood in the frame, her face unreadable as stone. If the news hit her, she didn't show it. "There's a will," Hayes continued, addressing Sarah directly now. "You're listed as sole beneficiary, Miss Miller." "Beneficiary of what?" Eli asked. "Everything. The ranch, the land, the livestock, approximately $2,000 in assets." Hayes pulled papers from his satchel. "You have 30 days to appear at the courthouse and claim your inheritance. If you fail to do so, the estate passes to the next of kin, Mr. Silas Miller, deceased's brother." Sarah stepped fully into the sunlight. Her voice came out cold as January. "He left me everything after he tied me to a tree to die." Hayes shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. "The will was written 3 years ago, Maham, before recent events. The law is the law." "The law," Sarah laughed, bitter and sharp. "The law didn't cut me down from that tree. The law rode past 17 times. Hayes had no answer for that. He dismounted, approached with the papers held out like a peace offering. "These are the documents. You have until September the 5th. After that, the inheritance transfers automatically." He laid the papers on the porch rail and retreated to his horse with the haste of a man eager to be elsewhere. "My condolences on your loss, Miss Miller." "I lost him long before he died," Sarah said. But Hayes was already riding away, dust trailing behind him like guilt. The papers sat untouched on the rail through dinner. Eli made beans and the last of the salt pork. They ate in silence until Sarah's spoon clattered against her bowl. "I don't want it. The inheritance. His blood money. His guilt." She pushed the bowl away. "He left me to die, and now leaves me his fortune. What kind of sick joke? Maybe it ain't a joke." Eli chose his words carefully. "Maybe it's guilt. Maybe he knew what he did was wrong." "Guilt comes before you tie your daughter to a tree, not after you're dead." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "It's too late for guilt, too late for sorry. Maybe, but a $2,000 ain't about sorry. It's about what's owed. I don't need anything from that family. Then what will you do?" The question settled between them like smoke. Sarah stared at the papers through the open door, her jaw working. "I don't know. But I won't build a life on that man's regret." That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch, watching darkness swallow the landscape, thinking about inheritance and debt, about Martha's parents, who disowned her for marrying beneath their station, about the money they'd offered after her death, guilt money, just like Horace's. Eli had burned their letter without opening the bank draft. Some money came with too high a price. Movement caught his eye. 3 riders, silhouettes against the moonlit horizon, watching the shack from half a mile out, too far to identify, close enough to unsettle. They stayed for 20 minutes before disappearing into the dark. Eli didn't mention them at breakfast. The next day they returned, closer this time, maybe 300 yards. Eli was hauling water when he spotted them. He set the buckets down slowly, never taking his eyes off the riders. One of them raised a hand, not quite a wave, more like acknowledgement. Then they rode off. On the 11th day, Eli saddled redemption. "Got business in town," he told Sarah. "Stay inside. Bar the door. Don't open it for anyone but me." "What kind of business?" "The kind that needs settling before it settles us." As Dust Creek looked the same as it had 10 years ago, same false front buildings, same judging eyes behind lace curtains. Eli tied redemption outside the saloon and pushed through the doors. The bartender, a man named Dutch, who'd served drinks since before the war, looked up and froze. "Eli Thompson, thought you'd turned into a ghost." "Not yet." Eli laid a coin on the bar. "Whiskey and information," Dutch poured. "What kind of information?" 3 men, hired guns by the look of them. Been watching my place?" "Ah." Dutch's face went carefully neutral. "That'd be Silas Miller's boys. Came in 2 days back. He's paying them $20 each." "Paying them for what?" "Didn't ask. Don't want to know." But Dutch's eyes flicked toward the corner where 3 hard-faced men sat playing cards. "That's them." Eli studied the men without appearing to... Young, confident, guns worn low and easy. The lead one had a scar running from his left eye to his jaw. He caught Eli looking and smiled without warmth. Eli downed the whiskey and left outside. He found a deputy leaning against the post. The man straightened when he saw Eli, Marshall Thompson, or just Thompson now, I suppose. "Just Eli. You know about Silas Miller hiring guns. Not my business what men do with their money." even when it's likely to end in bloodshed." The deputy shrugged. "Got no proof of any crime. Can't arrest a man for hiring ranch hands." Ranch hands. Right. Eli mounted Redemption and headed home, the taste of whiskey mixing with certainty. Sarah had 2 weeks to claim her inheritance. Silas Miller had 30 days to inherit if she didn't. Dead women made convenient heirs. "You need to learn to ride." Sarah looked up from the bowl she was washing. "I know how to ride. I mean really ride. Fast. Without falling." Eli stood in the doorway, silhouetted by morning sun. "If we need to run, you need to stay on that horse." "Why would we need to run?" "Because Silas Miller hired 3 guns to watch us. And men don't pay $20 a head for watching." The bowl slipped from Sarah's hands, clattering in the wash basin. "He's going to kill me." "He's going to try." Eli stepped inside, his face set hard. "We got 2 weeks to keep you alive and get you to that courthouse. Starting now, you learn to survive." Redemption stood in the small corral, patient as stone. The horse was big, 16 hands of muscle and scars, with eyes that had seen too much. Sarah approached lowly, one hand extended. "He won't hurt you," Eli said. "Belonged to a man who got hanged. I figure we both understand what it's like to carry dead men around." Sarah's hand touched the horse's neck, warm, solid, real. "I've ridden before. Side saddle on Horace's mare, never fast, never far. This ain't side saddle riding. This is staying alive riding." Eli brought out a saddle worn smooth by years. "Mount up." She stared at the stirrup, then at her body. The arithmetic of weight and strength didn't favor her. "I can't." "You can't afford not to." Sarah grabbed the saddle horn, put her foot in the stirrup, and pulled. Her arms shook. The horse shifted. She fell back, landing hard on her tailbone, dust pluming around at her. Eli said nothing, just waited. She tried again, made it halfway up before her grip failed. The ground met her shoulder this time. Pain shot through her arm. Again. "I can't do this." "Then you'll die." "Your choice." Eli's voice held no sympathy, no softness, just truth, brutal and clean. Sarah pushed herself up, grabbed the horn. This time she got her leg over, clinging to Redemption's back like a drowning woman to driftwood. The ground looked very far away. "Good. Now don't fall off." The horse took one step. Sarah's balance shifted. She grabbed his mane, her other hand white-knuckled on the horn. 2 more steps. 3. The world tilted. She hit the ground for the 3rd time, tasting dust and failure. "Martha couldn't ride either at first," Eli said, pulling her to her feet. "Took her 3 weeks, but she learned, became the best rider in the county." "Did the learning kill her?" "No." Eli's jaw tightened. "People did that." Something in his voice made Sarah look at him differently. This man who lived alone in a shack, who'd quit being marshal, who kept a photograph face down. He knew about cruelty, knew about surviving it. She climbed back on the horse. By noon, Sarah could stay mounted at a walk. By evening, her thighs screamed and her hands bled from gripping leather. She fell 6 more times, got back up 7. The 2nd day, Eli had her carrying water from the creek, 2 buckets, 80 yards. She made it halfway before her arms gave out, water sloshing across her boots. Again, this is cruel. Dying is crueler. Again. She carried water until the sun peaked, until her shoulders burned until she wanted to cry but was too tired for tears. On the 14th trip, she made it all the way without stopping. Eli nodded. Better. The third day brought wood chopping. The axe felt impossible in her hands, too heavy, too unwieldy. Her first swing barely dented the log. You're using your arms. Use your whole body. Let gravity do the work. She adjusted her stance, raised the axe, brought it down with her full weight behind it. The log split clean. Something fierce barked in her chest. Like that, Eli said. Now do it 50 more times. By the 4th day, Sarah could mount Redemption without help, could carry 2 water buckets the full distance, could split wood until her hands bled, and then split more. Her body hurt in ways she didn't know were possible, but beneath the pain, something else grew, something harder, something that refused to break. That evening, she rode Redemption in circles around the property for an hour. When she finally dismounted, Eli was watching from the porch. You did good, kid, kid. The word settled on her shoulders like a hand, almost paternal, almost family. Thank you, she said, for not giving up on me. Can't give up on someone who don't give up on themselves. The peace lasted 3 more days. On the 19th night, hoofbeats woke Eli from restless sleep. He was up before his eyes fully opened, hand reaching for the gun belt he'd started wearing again. 3 riders approaching fast. He shook Sarah awake. Get under the bed. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Eli, now. She scrambled under as Eli grabbed his rifle and positioned himself by the window. Moonlight painted the riders silver as they reined up 50 yards out. Send out the girl, one of them called. Nobody needs to get hurt. Eli recognized the voice. The scarred man from the saloon. Can't do that. Mr. Miller's paying good money. Don't be a fool. Old man. Been a fool most of my life. Too late to stop now. Your funeral. A gunshot shattered the window above Eli's head. Glass rained down as he dropped, already bringing the rifle up. He fired through the window frame, aiming high, warning shot. The riders scattered, finding cover behind rocks and scrub. Another shot punched through the door, splinters exploding inward. Eli moved to the other window, fired twice. One of the riders yelped hit, but not fatally. The night erupted in muzzle flashes, bullets thudding into walls, whining off stones. Under the bed, Sarah pressed her hands over her ears, tasting dust and terror. Eli reloaded with practiced hands, muscle memory from a life he'd tried to bury. He sighted on movement, squeezed the trigger. A rider spun from his saddle with a scream, clutching his shoulder. This ain't over, the scarred man shouted. 3 horses thundered away into darkness, leaving one man writhing in the dirt. Eli waited 5 minutes before stepping outside, rifle ready. The wounded man was young, maybe 20, his shoulder bleeding through his shirt. He looked up at Eli with frightened eyes. Don't kill me, please. It was just a job. What's your name? Pete? Pete Carson. Well, Pete Carson, you tell Silas Miller the price just went up. Eli lowered the rifle. You tell him next time. I aim to kill. Now get on your horse and ride. Pete scrambled up, mounted with difficulty, and vanished into the night. Inside, Sarah emerged from under the bed, shaking. They're going to kill us. They're going to try. Eli checked his ammunition. But trying and succeeding are different things. How many bullets do you have? Enough. For 3 men, for however many Silas sends next. Eli met her eyes. For as many as it takes. The next morning, Sarah found Eli cleaning his guns with methodical precision. His movements were different now, economical, purposeful. The hollow man she'd met was gone. In his place sat someone harder, someone who'd done violence and would do it again. "You were a marshal," she said, not a question. "Long time ago. Why'd you quit?" Eli's hands stilled on the revolver. Couldn't protect what mattered most. Figured the badge was a lie. "Your wife?" He nodded, not looking up. "Martha. Town tore her apart with words. I thought I could stop it. Thought wearing the law would make them respect us. I was wrong. How did she—" Sarah stopped, not sure she wanted the answer. "Hanged herself in our barn. Left a note saying she couldn't be my burden anymore." Eli's voice stayed flat, emotionless, but his hands trembled. "Said they were right about her." Sarah sat down hard. "The sign around my neck." "Yeah. When I saw that sign, I saw Martha. Saw every person in the world convinced they weren't worth the air they breathed." He finally looked up. "That's why I couldn't ride past." They sat in heavy silence until Sarah spoke. "I need to tell you something about my mother, your mama. She wasn't like the women in town. She was Cheyenne, native." Sarah watched his face for judgment, found only attention. "Horace found her dying after a raid. She'd just given birth to me. My real father was killed in that raid. Horace took me in, but I'm not his blood. I'm half Cheyenne." "That why he treated you cruel?" "Maybe. Or maybe he just resented saving someone who reminded him he was decent once." Sarah's voice hardened. "Town would crucify me if they knew. Half-breed fat girl, I'd be worse than nothing." Eli reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers. "Your blood don't define you. Your heart does. And your heart's got more courage than this whole territory." "How do you know?" "Because you're still here, still fighting. That's all the proof I need." On the 22nd day, Sarah woke before dawn. Eli found her in the corral, mounted on Redemption, riding circles in the half-light. She'd improved, dramatically balanced, confident, moving with the horse instead of against it. "Can't sleep," he called. "Had a dream about the tree, about the rope." She guided Redemption over. "But in the dream, I cut myself free. I climbed down and walked away. That's a good dream. It felt real. Like maybe I can do this. Maybe I can survive." "You're already surviving. Now you're learning to live." The words hung in the morning air, simple and true. Sarah dismounted smoothly, her movements efficient now. 2 weeks of brutal training had reshaped her, not her body, but something deeper. Her spine held straighter. Her eyes met his without flinching. "Eli, what happens after if I survive the 30 days? Claim the inheritance. Then you got choices, more than you had before. And where will you go?" The question caught him off guard. He'd assumed she'd want him gone once the danger passed. Why would she keep around the man who reminded her of almost dying? Hadn't thought that far. "Think about it," Sarah said, "because I got a feeling when this is over, I'm going to need someone who knows about second chances." Before Eli could respond, movement on the horizon, a single rider, coming fast. Both of them tensed, but as the figure drew closer, Eli recognized the horse. "It's Carlton Hayes, the lawyer." Hayes dismounted, breathing hard. Miss Miller, Mr. Thompson, thank God you're both alive. There's been—" He paused, collecting himself. "Horace Miller's ranch. Someone burned the barn last night. Sheriff says it was an accident, but folks are talking, saying Silas is trying to damage the property before Sarah can claim it. Can he do that?" Sarah asked. "Not legally, but proving arson is difficult. And the sheriff—" Hayes shook his head. "The sheriff owes Silas money, gambling debts, so the law won't help," Eli said. "The law rarely helps those who need it most." Hayes pulled out papers. "Miss Miller, I urge you to sign these now. We can register them early. Protect your claim before Silas does more damage." Sarah looked at Eli. He nodded slightly. Sometimes survival meant accepting what you didn't want. "Where do I sign?" As Hayes laid out the papers, none of them noticed the rider watching from the ridge, the scarred man taking notes, planning. The attack came on the 25th night. Eli had been expecting it. The burned barn was a message Silas was desperate, which made him dangerous. Desperate men didn't wait for legal processes to fail them. He'd prepared as best he could, moved ammunition closer to the windows, filled buckets with water in case of fire, taught Sarah to load the rifles, to aim, to shoot without thinking. She'd resisted at first. "I can't kill someone." "Then you'll die," Eli had said, brutal and honest. "You don't have to like it. You just have to do it." Now, past midnight. Eli sat by the window with his rifle across his knees. Sarah was supposed to be sleeping, but he could hear her breathing from the bed, too quick, too shallow. Fear had its own rhythm. The horses came quietly this time. Professional? 4 riders instead of 3, moving in coordinated silence. Eli's stomach tightened. Silas had upgraded. They split up, 2 heading for the back of the shack, 2 stay in front. Classic pincer movement. These weren't $20 ranch hands. These were men who knew their business. Eli moved to wake Sarah, but she was already up, rifle in hand. Her face was pale but set. "I heard them. Back window. Anyone comes through. You shoot. Don't hesitate. Don't think. Just shoot." "What about you?" "I'll handle the front." He started to move, then stopped. "Sarah, if I go down, you take redemption and ride. Don't look back. You hear me?" "I hear you." But her eyes said she wouldn't run. The first shot came from the back. Glass exploded. Sarah fired blindly through the window frame. The rifle's kick nearly knocking her down. A man's curse, hit or miss. Eli couldn't tell. He focused on the front, 2 shadows creeping toward the door. He aimed carefully, leading the target, accounting for distance and darkness. Squeezed the trigger. The leftmost shadow dropped with a scream. All hell broke loose. Bullets tore through the holes like angry wasps. Eli dropped flat, rolling to the other window, fired twice. One rider's horse reared, throwing its rider. The man scrambled for cover behind the water trough. Behind him, Sarah's rifle cracked again and again. "One's down," she shouted. "I got one down." No time to process what that meant, what killing did to a person. Eli reloaded, sighted on the man behind the trough, fired. The bullet punched through wood and flesh. The man's rifle clattered to the ground. 2 down, 2 left. The back window shattered completely. A man was climbing through. Sarah swung her rifle like a club, catching him across the face. He tumbled back out, blood streaming from his nose. The scarred man appeared at the front door, kicking it open with his boot. Eli turned, bringing his rifle up. but not fast enough. The scarred man's gun was already level, already firing. The bullet caught Eli in the side, spinning him. He hit the floor hard, tasting copper. His rifle skittered away. Sarah screamed, turned, fired. The scarred man ducked, her shot going wide. He advanced into the room, gun tracking between Eli and Sarah. "Drop it, girl. This don't have to end bloody for you." "Seems like it's already bloody." Sarah's hands shook, but she kept the rifle up. "Silas just wants what's his. Sign over the inheritance. We all walk away. And if I don't, then you don't walk at all." Eli's hand found his revolver, drew it with agonizing slowness. His side was on fire, wet with blood. The room tilted, but he forced his vision to clear. One shot. He'd get one shot before the scarred man killed him. Had to make it count. "I'll sign," Sarah said. "Just let him live." "Sarah, no." Eli coughed, blood on his lips. The scarred man smiled. "Smart girl. Now put down the rifle slow." Sarah lowered it. The man relaxed slightly, lowering his own gun a fraction. Eli fired. The bullet took the scarred man in the chest, dead center. He looked down at the spreading red with surprise, then crumpled like a marionette with cut strings. Sarah rushed to Eli. Oh God, you're bleeding. Flesh wound." It wasn't. They both knew it wasn't. "The other man, the one at the back window. He ran. I saw him right off." Sarah pressed her hands to Eli's side, trying to stop the bleeding. Her hands came away crimson. "You need a doctor." "No doctors. Can't trust anyone in town." Eli's vision grayed at the edges. "There's whiskey in the cabinet, and needle and thread in the saddlebag. I don't know how to—" "You killed a man tonight. You can do this too." His hand found hers, gripped tight. "I trust you, kid." The next hour was the longest of Sarah's life. She heated the needle in the stove flame, poured whiskey over the wound. Eli screamed once, then bit down on a leather strap and went silent. The bullet had gone through cleanly, small mercy. Sarah stitched with shaking hands, remembering how Horace's wife had sewn torn clothes. Skin was just fabric, she told herself, just fabric that bled. When she finished, Eli was unconscious, his breathing shallow but steady. Sarah cleaned the blood from her hands and walked outside. 4 bodies lay in the dirt. 4 men dead because of her. Because she'd inherited something she never wanted. She should have felt horror, should have felt guilt. Instead, she felt nothing. Empty, clean. The one who'd escaped would tell Silas, would tell him his hired guns were dead. That would buy them time, but not much. Sarah dragged the bodies away from the shack, one by one. Bitter work. By the time she finished, dawn was breaking, painting the sky the color of old blood. She found Eli awake when she returned, propped against the wall. "You should be lying down." "Been lying down. Didn't like the view." He winced, pressing his hand to the bandage. "How many?" "4. One got away." "Good, good. Let him run. Let him tell Silas what happens to men who come for you." Eli's eyes were hard as stone. "Maybe he'll think twice. And if he doesn't, then we kill him too." Said simply, fact, not threat. Sarah sat beside him, both of them blood-stained and exhausted. "I killed a man tonight. I know. I should feel something. Guilt. Horror. Something. You will. Later. When you're safe." Eli shifted, biting back pain. "Right now. Your body's protecting you, letting you do what needs doing. The feelings come after. did they come for you after Martha every night for 10 years?" He looked at her. "But this is different. You shot a man trying to kill you. That ain't murder. That's survival. Don't let anyone tell you different." They sat in silence as the sun rose higher. The shack was destroyed, bullet holes in the walls, windows shattered, door hanging crooked on its hinges. But they were alive. "We can't stay here," Sarah finally said. "No, Silas knows where we are now. He'll send more. How many days until the 30? 5 Can we make it 5 days?" Eli struggled to his feet, swaying. "We're going to do better than that. We're going to the courthouse today. Today, you can barely stand. Don't need to stand to ride. And every day we wait gives Silas another chance to kill us." He grabbed his gun belt, strapping it on with difficulty. "We're ending this now. Eli, you need rest." "I'll rest when you're safe, not before." He moved to the door, each step an exercise in controlled agony. "Saddle redemption. Pack what you can carry. We leave in 10 minutes. Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to force him to lie down, to heal. But she saw the determination in his eyes, the same determination that had cut her down from that tree. Eli Thompson didn't know how to quit. Even when quitting was the smart thing, she saddled the horse. They left the bodies where they lay. Let the buzzards have them. Sarah took one last look at the shack that had been her salvation, then climbed up behind Eli. He was too weak to ride alone, too proud to admit it. The 5-mile journey to Dust Creek took 2 hours. Eli faded in and out of consciousness, only Sarah's arms around his waist, keeping him in the saddle. Blood seeped through his shirt, staining her hands. "Please," she prayed to a God she wasn't sure existed. "Please let him live. He saved me. Let me save him back." They entered town at noon. People stopped to stare at the blood, at Sarah's face, hard and unflinching, at Eli Thompson, the ghost who'd come back from the desert. Sarah guided redemption straight to the courthouse. Carlton Hayes was on the steps, talking to another lawyer. He saw them, and his face went white. Dear God, what happened? Silas Miller happened. Sarah dismounted, then helped Eli down. He could barely stand. "We're here to sign the papers. Right now. You need a doctor. Papers first, doctor after." Eli's voice was steel-wrapped in pain. Hayes led them inside, shouting for his clerk. The courthouse was cool, dim, smelling of old paper and older promises. Sarah signed where Hayes indicated, her signature shaky but legible. "There," Hayes said. "It's done. The inheritance is legally yours, Miss Miller. Silas has no claim." "Good." Sarah turned to Eli, who was sliding down the wall. "Now get us a doctor, please." The town physician came, an old man with gentle hands and eyes that had seen too much. He examined Eli on the courthouse floor, shook his head. "He needs bed rest, weeks of it, and he's lost a lot of blood. Will he live?" Sarah's voice cracked. "If he rests, if infection doesn't set in, if he wants to." The doctor looked at Sarah. "Does he have a reason to want to?" Sarah took Eli's hand. His eyes opened, found hers. "Yeah," Eli whispered. "I got a reason." Eli Thompson died 3 times in the next 48 hours. The first time was in the doctor's office, when fever took him and his heart stopped for 15 seconds. The doctor pounded his chest while Sarah screamed. His eyes opened, confused and glassy. then closed again. The second time was during the night, when infection set in and his body convulsed. Sarah held him down while the doctor cut the wound open again, draining poison. Eli's screams echoed through the boarding house where they'd taken refuge. The third time was quietest. His breathing simply stopped. Exhausted and keeping vigil, didn't notice for a full minute. When she did, she shook him, slapped him, begged him. The doctor was asleep in the next room. She pressed her ear to Eli's chest and heard nothing. "Don't you dare," she whispered. "Don't you dare leave me alone." She thought of Martha in the barn, thought of her own father, James Redwater, dying alone in Eli's custody, thought of all the people who'd left her, one way or another. "I need you," she said to his still face. "Do you hear me? I need you." His chest rose, slight, barely perceptible. But it rose. By the fourth day, the fever broke. Eli woke to find Sarah asleep in a chair beside his bed, her head on his mattress, dark circles under her eyes. A woman who'd killed 4 men to keep him breathing. A woman who'd refused to let death take one more person from her life. He reached out, touched her hair gently. She jerked awake, eyes wild. "You're awake?" Not a question, an accusation. "You almost died. 3 times. 3. Sorry about that. Don't joke. Don't you dare joke." Tears streamed down her face. "I can't lose you too. Everyone leaves, everyone dies or runs or ties me to trees. You're all I have." "Sarah, my mother died having me. My father died committing crimes. Horace died hating me. And you almost—" She couldn't finish. Eli pulled her closer with his good arm. She collapsed against the bed, sobbing. He let her cry, saying nothing, because sometimes there were no words, only presence, only the stubborn fact of survival. When her tears slowed, he spoke quietly. "I ain't going anywhere. Takes more than a bullet to kill someone too mean to die." She laughed despite herself, pulled back, wiping her eyes. "The doctor says you need 6 weeks before you can travel." "Weeks. At least. The wound was deep. You lost too much blood." She stood pacing. "Which means we're stuck in Dust Creek, in the town that hated me, that let Horace tie me to a tree. What about the inheritance, the ranch?" "Carlton Hayes has been managing it. He says Silas disappeared. Rode out the day after we signed the papers. Sheriff found his house empty, cleaned out. He's not gone. Men like that don't quit." "I know." Sarah stopped at the window, looking out at the street. "Hayes also brought me something. Letters from Pearl." "Who's Pearl?" "A woman from the saloon. She knew my mother." Sarah's voice caught. "Knew my father, too. She has letters he wrote before he died. For me?" Eli absorbed this. "Have you read them?" "No. I'm afraid to. What if he says he didn't want me? What if—" She stopped, shaking her head. "What if the sign was right, that nobody needs me? Sarah, look at me." When she turned, Eli's eyes were fierce. "Your father wrote you letters. That ain't the act of a man who didn't care. That's love. Complicated, messy. Maybe broken love. But love, how do you know? Because I've carried his wanted poster for 10 years. Because his last words were about you. He loved you enough to die so you'd have a better life." Sarah sat back down, pulling an envelope from her pocket. worn, yellow with age. Her name written in rough script across the front. Will you stay while I read it? Nowhere else I'd be. She opened the letter with shaking hands. Her eyes moved across the page, tears falling freely. When she finished, she handed it to Eli without speaking. He read, his own vision blurring. Little sparrow, that's what your mama called you. You were born under a full moon, crying so loud the whole camp heard. She held you once, smiled, and was gone. I never forgave myself for not being able to save her. I tried to check. God knows I tried. Stole money for medicine, robbed banks for doctors, but I was too late. She died anyway, and then I couldn't stop. Kept stealing, kept running, kept trying to earn enough to give you a good life. But I just made everything worse. I'm giving you to Horace Miller. He's a hard man, but he's honest. He'll raise you better than I ever could. Don't look for me. Don't remember me. Just live, be happy, be everything I couldn't be. I love you more than breath. Your daddy, James Redwater. Eli set the letter down carefully. He didn't abandon you. He saved you. From himself. Sarah's voice was hollow. He knew he was broken, knew he'd drag me down with him. That's the hardest kind of love, letting go, because you can't be what someone needs. Eli thought of Martha, of how he'd failed to protect her. Takes courage to admit you're the poison, not the cure. Pearl has 4 more letters. I can't read them yet. Take your time. They ain't going anywhere. The door opened. Carlton Hayes entered, hat in hand, looking uncomfortable. Miss Miller, Mr. Thompson, sorry to intrude, but there's a matter that needs addressing. What matter? Sarah stood. The ranch, it's legally yours now, but there's been developments. Hayes pulled out papers. A surveyor was working the property for the railroad. Found something, a silver vein, large one. The room went silent. How large? Eli asked. Potentially $100,000, maybe more. Hayes set the papers on the bed. Silas knew. He hired the surveyor 2 months ago, before Horace died. Understanding crashed over Sarah like cold water. He needed me dead before Horace died naturally. I can't prove it, but yes, that's my theory. Hayes looked grim. The sheriff found evidence in Silas's abandoned house, maps, assay reports, and a bottle of foxglove. The glove. Sarah frowned. Poison, Eli said quietly. Causes heart attacks. Looks natural. Dear God. Sarah sat down hard. He killed his own brother. Again, can't prove it. Horace's body was buried before anyone suspected foul play. Hayes folded his hands. But Silas fled. Guilty men run. He'll come back, Eli said. Once he hears I'm a solid, that Sarah signed the papers, he'll come back with more guns. Then what do we do? Sarah looked between them. We prepare. Eli said, and we make sure next time he doesn't leave. But as Hayes left, and Sarah returned to his bedside, neither of them spoke the truth. They both felt Eli was too weak to fight. And Sarah had already killed enough men for 1 lifetime. They were trapped in Dust Creek with an enemy in the shadows and a fortune neither of them wanted. Sometimes inheritance was just another word for curse. Pearl came to visit on the 7th day. She was older than Sarah expected, 65 at least, with silver hair and hands gnarled by arthritis. But her eyes were sharp, knowing, and when she looked at Sarah, Recognition flickered across her face. "You have your mother's eyes," Pearl said from the doorway. "May I come in?" Sarah stood from Eli's bedside. "You're Pearl." "I am, and your little sparrow, though nobody's called you that in 19 years. The name hit Sarah like a physical thing. She'd read it in her father's letter, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real, made her mother real. "How did you know her?" Pearl entered slowly, settling into the chair Sarah had vacated. "Your mama? Her name was Soft Rain. She saved my life once. I was working the saloons, got beaten bad by a customer. She found me in the alley, brought me to her camp, nursed me back. Didn't matter that I was white, that her people had reason to hate mine. She just helped." Sarah sat on the edge of Eli's bed. He was awake, but quiet, listening. "After she died, your father came to me. Said he was going to rob one more bank, get one more steak, then disappear. Knew he'd probably die trying." Pearl reached into her bag, pulling out 4 more letters. "He gave me these, made me promise I'd give them to you when you were old enough to understand. Why didn't you—" No accusation in Sarah's voice, just curiosity. "Horace forbade it, threatened me. Said if I ever told you about your father, about your mother, he'd have me run out of town." Pearl's mouth tightened. "I was a coward. I kept the letters and stayed silent. Watched you grow up being treated cruel, and I said nothing. I'm sorry." Sarah took the letters with trembling hands. 4 envelopes, each marked with a number, 2 through 5. "Thank you for keeping them, for bringing them now." Pearl stood to leave, then paused. "Your father loved you fierce. Your mother, too. Don't let anyone tell you different. You come from love. Child, remember that." After she left, Sarah stared at the letters. 4 more pieces of a father she'd never known. 4 more chances to be disappointed or devastated. "You want me to leave?" Eli asked quietly. "Give you privacy?" "No." Sarah opened the second letter. "I need you here." The second letter detailed her father's guilt, how he'd tried to save Soft Rain, how he'd failed, how every crime afterward was an attempt to earn enough money to give Sarah the life her mother would have wanted. The third letter described Soft Rain herself, her laugh, her gentleness, how she'd sing to her swollen belly, how she'd chosen the name Little Sparrow because sparrows were small but fierce, survivors in a hard world. The fourth letter was an apology for being weak, for being a criminal, for dying and leaving her alone. But it was the 5th letter that shattered Sarah completely. "Dear little sparrow, if you're reading this, I'm dead. Probably deserved it. I was a thief and a coward. But I need you to know everything I did. I did trying to save your mama. The money I stole was for a doctor. But I was too late. She died anyway. And then I couldn't stop. Kept stealing, kept running, kept trying to earn enough to give you a good life. But I just made everything worse. The marshal who's going to shoot me tomorrow, his name is Eli Thompson. He's a good man, hard but fair. He don't know about you, don't know I got a daughter waiting after I'm gone. If you ever meet him, tell him I said thank you. Thank him for ending it clean, for giving me a death better than I lived. And little sparrow finds someone who needs you, not someone you need, but someone who needs you. That's where family really lives. In the needing and being needed. Your mama taught me that. Too late for me to learn. but not too late for you. I love you more than breath, more than life. I'm sorry I couldn't be the father you deserved. Your daddy, James Redwater. Sarah's hands shook so badly the paper rattled. She looked up at Eli, tears streaming. He mentioned you by name? Eli went pale. What? Read it. She thrust the letter at him. He read slowly, his face crumbling. When he finished, he set the letter down like it might burn him. He thanked me for killing him. His voice cracked. Dear God. He wanted to die, Sarah said. He was in pain, broken. You gave him peace. I took your father from you. No. Sarah moved closer, taking his hand. He was already gone. The man who wrote these letters, he left before you ever pulled that trigger. You just made it official. Eli pulled his hand away, turning his face to the wall. Don't forgive me for this. It ain't right. I'm not forgiving you for him. I'm forgiving you for me. Sarah's voice was steel, because holding on to hate won't bring him back, won't change what happened. All it does is keep me tied to that tree. Sarah, he said to find someone who needs me, someone who needs me. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. You need me, Eli Thompson, and God help me, I need you. That's what he wanted. That's what she wanted, for me to find family. I killed your father, and then you saved his daughter. Sarah's eyes blazed. You think that's coincidence? You think God or fate or whatever runs this world just threw us together random? You carried his wanted poster for 10 years. You couldn't save Martha, so you saved me. Don't you see? You've been trying to make this right since the moment you pulled that trigger. Eli's breath came ragged. I don't deserve forgiveness. Neither did my father. Neither did Horace. Neither do I for the men I killed. Sarah's grip gentled. But we're all broken. Eli, all of us. The question ain't whether we deserve forgiveness. It's whether we're brave enough to accept it. Silence stretched between them, heavy with 15 years of guilt and grief and the terrible mathematics of survival. Finally, Eli spoke. Your father's last words. He said to tell you he loved you, to tell you he was sorry. I never knew who you were, so I couldn't deliver the message. He met her eyes. I'm delivering it now. James Redwater loved you. He was sorry, and he died wanting better for you than he could give. Sarah nodded, tears falling freely. Thank you for telling me, for cutting me down from that tree, for everything. What do we do now? Eli asked. With all of it, the inheritance, the silver, Silas still out there. Sarah looked at the letters spread across the bed, 5 pieces of paper that rewrote her understanding of everything. Her father wasn't a monster. Her mother had loved her, and the man who'd killed her father had been trying, in his broken way, to set things right ever since. We build something, she said finally, something my father would be proud of, something Martha would have wanted. We take that cursed ranch and turn it into something good. Like what? A place for people like us, broken people, unwanted people, the kind of people Dust Creek throws away. Sarah's voice grew stronger. We call it Redemption Ranch. After your horse, after what we're both looking for. Eli stared at her. You want me to help run your ranch? I want you to help me build a family, not blood family, chosen family, the kind my father wrote about, the kind that needs each other. Sarah, I'm no rancher. I'm a washed-up marshal who couldn't even protect his own wife. You protected me. That's different. No. Sarah stood, resolute. It's exactly the same. You get one more chance, Eli. We both do, to prove that broken things can be fixed, that people who've done wrong can do right, that mercy exists. Eli looked at her, this girl who'd been tied to a tree, who'd killed to survive, who'd forgiven the unforgivable. She was offering him something he'd thought dead 10 years ago. Hope. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, we'll build it together. Sarah smiled through her tears. Good, because I already told Carlton Hayes to draw up the papers. You're officially foreman of Redemption Ranch. Salary of $50 a month. $50, Sarah. That's non-negotiable. And you get your own house on the property. And first, say in who we hire. You really thought this through. Had to. Someone needed to, since you were too busy dying. She sat back down, exhaustion finally showing. We start in 6 weeks when you can travel. Until then, we plan, we heal, and we let Silas make his move. You think he will? I know he will. Men like that always come back. Sarah's jaw set hard, but this time we'll be ready. 5 years later, Redemption Ranch sprawled across 2,000 acres of what used to be Horace Miller's land. The main house had been rebuilt bigger, with a wide porch and windows that let in light instead of keeping out hope. 3 bunkhouses stood in neat rows, housing 25 workers. The stables held 50 horses, a mix of working stock and breeding mares. Cattle grazed in the south pastures. Chickens scratched in their coops. Vegetable gardens produced more than they could eat. But it wasn't the prosperity that made Redemption Ranch different. It was the people. Sarah Miller, she'd never taken Redwater as a legal name, but everyone called her Sarah Redwater anyway, stood on the porch at dawn, watching her workers emerge for breakfast. Maria Santos, the Mexican woman who'd fled violence and now ran the kitchen. Joseph Grant, who'd lost his left arm in the war and was the best horse trainer in 3 counties. Ruth Begay, 19, Navajo, who Sarah was training to take over as ranch manager someday. Samuel Wright, a former slave whose skill with cattle had made the ranch profitable. Maggie Finch, a widow with 4 children who managed the poultry operation. 25 souls, each with a story, each rejected by the world for being wrong, somehow wrong color, wrong past, wrong body, wrong origin, each given a second chance at Redemption Ranch. Sarah was 34 now, still heavy. She'd never lost the weight and never tried. Her body was strong from work, her hands calloused, her face weathered by sun and wind. She wore men's trousers and a work shirt, her hair tied back practical. The town had long since stopped whispering about her appearance. Hard to mock a woman who employed half the county and whose ranch produced more beef than any 3 spreads combined. Eli Thompson emerged from the foreman's house, moving slower than 5 years ago, but still steady. Gray streaked his beard, lines creased his face. He was 42 and looked older, but his eyes held something they hadn't before: peace. Not happiness. Peace was different, harder won. He walked to the main house, coffee cup in hand. "Morning, boss," he said, using the title that always made Sarah roll her eyes. "I told you to stop calling me that, and I told you I'd stop when you stopped being the boss." He sipped his coffee. "We got a new arrival coming today. Sheriff's bringing him. Another one. 16-year-old kid, Thomas Brooks. Parents dead. Caught stealing bread. Sheriff says he's scared, but not mean. Good candidate? Sarah nodded. They got inquiries weekly. Now, lawmen, priests, desperate parents, all asking if Redemption Ranch would take someone. Sarah's rule was simple: if you're willing to work and willing to learn, you have a place. She'd turned away exactly 3 people in 5 years, all because they wanted charity instead of purpose. Put him with Joseph. Horse training will give him confidence. Already planned on it. Eli leaned against the porch rail. Also got word from Washington. They want you to speak at that women's convention next month. Sarah's stomach tightened. She'd received the letter 3 days ago and hadn't decided yet. I'm not a speaker. You speak every day, with this place, with your life. That's different than standing in front of 500 people. Martha couldn't speak up. Your mama couldn't, but you can. Eli's voice was gentle. What if some girl tied to a tree somewhere? Here's your story. Here's that there's a way out. Sarah looked out at the ranch. 5 years ago, it had been a burned-out wreck with a barn turned to ash. Now it was home to 24 people who'd had nowhere else to go. If her story could do that for someone else, I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. Breakfast was communal, everyone at long tables, passing plates, sharing jokes. Sarah sat with her workers, not above them. Eli took his usual spot at the end, next to Pearl. Pearl had moved to the ranch 2 years ago when her health started failing. She lived in a small cottage near the main house and taught Sarah about native medicines, traditional cooking, the stories soft rain had told her. She was 70 now, frail but sharp as a tack. Heard you're thinking about Washington, Pearl said, spooning oatmeal into her bowl. News travels fast. It's a small ranch. Pearl smiled. You should go. Your mama would be proud, seeing her daughter stand up in front of all those powerful people and tell them they're wrong about who matters. I'm scared I'll fail, that I'll freeze up there and prove everyone right about me. Failing while trying is still better than not trying at all. Pearl touched Sarah's hand. Besides, you've already done the hard part. You survived. Everything after that is just details. After breakfast, Sarah walked the property with Eli. It was their routine, checking fences, planning projects, discussing the workers. This morning, they headed toward the cemetery. Sarah had bought the plot where her father was buried and moved his remains to ranch property. She'd placed him next to Martha Thompson, who Eli had also moved. The headstones were simple but honest. James Redwater, 1845 to 1875. Beloved father, flawed man, forgiven soul. Martha Thompson, 1848, and beloved wife. Beautiful spirit, never forgotten. Fresh flowers sat on both graves. Sarah brought them weekly. She knelt between the stones, quiet for a moment, then spoke to her father like she always did. We've got 25 workers now. Papa, good people, broken people, like you wrote about. People who need somewhere to belong. She pulled a weed from the base of his stone. I think you'd like it. Think you'd be proud. Eli stood back, giving her privacy but staying close. After a moment, he moved to Martha's grave, kneeling stiffly. Hey, sweetheart, been a while since I talked to you proper. He traced her name with one finger. Met someone I think you'd like. Sarah. She's strong like you were, stubborn too, refuses to let the world tell her she ain't enough. He paused. I hope you understand why I'm still here, why I didn't follow you like I planned. There was work to do, people to help, and I think maybe you'd want me to do this work, to save the ones I couldn't save before." Sarah stood, giving Eli his moment. She walked to the fence line and stared out at the land. 2,000 acres, $100,000 worth of silver still unmined beneath her feet. She'd had offers mining companies willing to pay fortunes for the rights. She'd refused them all. The silver could stay in the ground. She had enough. Eli joined her, and they stood in comfortable silence. 5 years of working together had taught them how to be quiet around each other, how to exist without needing words. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah finally said. "Anything. Why did you really cut me down that day?" "The truth," Eli considered. They'd had versions of this conversation before, but something in Sarah's tone suggested she needed the deepest truth now. "Because I saw Martha in that rope, saw your daddy in that sign, saw every person I'd ever failed all at once." He turned to look at her. "And I thought not again, not one more. If I ride past this girl, I'm no better than the people who rode past Martha when she needed help, no better than the system that killed your father instead of helping him. So I stopped. You saved my life. You saved mine right back. We're even." "No," Sarah smiled. "We're family. That's different." Eli's eyes watered. After 5 years, the words still hit him hard. Yeah, it is." They walked back toward the main house. Riders approached from town, the sheriff and a skinny teenager who looked terrified. Thomas Brooks, the new arrival. Sarah and Eli waited on the porch. The sheriff dismounted, helped the boy down. "Miss Miller, Mr. Thompson, this is Thomas Brooks. Judge said you might have work for him." Thomas stood with his head down, shoulders hunched like he expected to be hit. Bruises yellowed on his face. His clothes were too small, wrists jutting out of sleeves. Sarah stepped forward. "You willing to work hard, Thomas?" "Yes, ma'am. I'll do anything. His voice cracked. "I got nowhere else to go." "Don't call me ma'am. Call me Sarah." She gestured to the ranch. "This is Redemption Ranch. We take in folks who need a second chance. You work, you eat, you learn, you stay, you cause trouble, you leave. Understand?" Thomas nodded, still not meeting her eyes. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." He looked up, and Sarah saw it, the same emptiness she'd felt tied to that tree. The same certainty that he was worthless, unwanted, better off dead. "You're not alone anymore," she said firmly. "Whatever you did, whatever happened, it don't matter here. You get a fresh start, but you gotta want it. You gotta fight for it. Can you do that?" Something flickered in Thomas's eyes. A spark, small but there. "I can try. Trying's all I ask." Sarah turned to Eli. "Get him settled in the bunkhouse. Put him with Joseph for training." As Eli led Thomas away, the boy looked back once, confusion and hope warring on his face. Sarah remembered that feeling, remembered not believing kindness could be real. The sheriff lingered. "You do good work here, Miss Miller. Town knows it. Town could have done this work themselves. They chose not to." The sheriff had no answer for that. He rode away, leaving Sarah alone on the porch with her thoughts. That evening, after the work was done and dinner eaten, Sarah sat in her office going through papers, ledgers, mostly. The ranch was profitable, not rich, but solid. The silver remained unmined, a fortune sitting untouched because Sarah had learned that some things were worth more than money. A knock. Eli entered without waiting for permission, his prerogative as foreman and family. "Thomas did good today. Joseph says he's got gentle hands with the horses. Kid's scared of his own shadow, but he listens. Good. We'll make something of him." Eli sat in the chair across from her desk. "You decided about Washington." Sarah set down her pen. "I'm going. You're right. If my story can help someone, I have to tell it." "Want me to come with you?" "No. You're needed here. Besides, I gotta do this alone. Gotta prove to myself I can—" She smiled. "But I appreciate the offer." "You'll do fine. You always do." 2 weeks later, Sarah stood on a train platform in Washington, D.C., more nervous than she'd been facing Silas Miller's guns. The convention hall held 500 women suffragettes, reformers, activists, women who'd been fighting for rights, while Sarah had been fighting to survive. She took the podium, hands shaking, looking out at the sea of faces. "My name is Sarah Redwater Miller. 5 years ago, I was tied to a tree to die." The room went silent. She told them everything. Horace, the sign, Eli cutting her down, the inheritance, the gunfights, learning to survive, building Redemption Ranch. She spoke for 20 minutes without notes, without polish, just raw truth. "People ask me how I forgave the man who killed my father," she said near the end. "I tell them I didn't forgive for him. I forgave for me. Hate is a rope that binds you tighter than any tree. Love is the knife that cuts you free." Standing ovation, women crying. Sarah stumbled back to her seat, shaking, certain she'd failed somehow. But afterward, dozens of women approached her, thanking her, telling their own stories of survival, asking how they could help build places like Redemption Ranch in their own towns. Sarah returned to Texas exhausted but changed. She'd told her story to the world, and the world had listened. The ranch welcomed her home with a banner hung across the main gate, "Welcome back, boss." She laughed at that, knowing Eli had organized it just to annoy her. That evening, they gathered on the porch. Sarah, Eli, Pearl, and a few of the senior workers. Someone played fiddle. Stories were shared. Thomas, the new kid who wasn't so new anymore after 3 weeks, listened wide-eyed to tales of how the ranch started. "Miss Sarah," he asked during a quiet moment, "why do you do this?" "Take in people like me." Sarah thought about her answer carefully. "Because someone took me in when I had nothing, and because everyone deserves to be needed, to matter. You matter, Thomas. Don't ever forget that." The boy nodded. Something fundamental shifting in his expression. Sarah recognized it the moment when survival became living. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, Sarah found herself back at the cemetery. She did this sometimes, when the weight of responsibility felt too heavy, talked to the dead, who never judged, never demanded, never disappointed. She sat between her father's grave and Martha's, looking up at the stars. "I spoke in Washington, Papa. Told them about you, about Mama, kiss, about how love can look like letting go." She pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. "Hundreds of people heard your story, heard that you tried, that you loved me. I think that matters." The wind rustled through the grass, carrying the scent of sage and dust. "Martha," she continued, addressing the other grave. I'm taking care of him, Eli. He's still grieving you. Probably always will. But he's healing too. Building something good with that grief. I think you'd like what we're doing. Think you'd want to be part of it. Footsteps. Eli emerged from the darkness, 2 coffee cups in hand. He offered one to Sarah, then sat beside her. Figured I'd find you here. Needed to talk to them. Tell them about Washington. What did they say? Nothing, but I think they're proud. They drank coffee in silence. 2 survivors sitting between their dead, finding comfort in ghosts and each other. Sarah, Eli's voice was uncertain. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said years ago. She turned to look at him, concerned by his tone. What is it? When I found you on that tree, I had every intention of riding past. My conscience was screaming at me to stop, but my survival instinct was louder. I had my hand on the reins, ready to kick redemption into a run. He stared into his coffee. But then you opened your eyes, just for a second, and you looked at me, and I saw Martha. I saw your father. I saw myself in that look, that certainty that you weren't worth saving. And I couldn't. His voice broke. I couldn't ride away from that look again. Sarah reached over, took his hand. You stopped. That's what matters. But I almost didn't. What if I had? What if I'd been one more person who rode past? But you weren't. You stopped. You saved me. And then I saved you back. That's how family works, Eli. We keep each other alive. You ever regret it? Me cutting you down, bringing all this trouble into your life? Sarah looked around at the ranch, the houses, the fences, the land stretching into darkness. Thought about the 25 people sleeping safe because she'd built this place. Thought about Thomas learning to trust again. Thought about Eli, who'd found purpose after 10 years of wandering. Not once, not for a second. She squeezed his hand. You gave me my life back. Everything after that, the good and the bad, it's all mine. I got to choose it. That's the gift you gave me. Choice. Eli nodded, something easing in his shoulders. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for stopping. They sat until their coffee went cold, then walked back to the main house together. The porch light burned warm and welcoming. Inside, Pearl had left bread and butter on the kitchen table with a note, in case you night owls get hungry. Sarah smiled at that. Family. Not the one she was born into, but the one she'd built. The one that chose her as much as she chose them. She slept that night without nightmares for the first time in years. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, a rider approached the ranch. Sarah was in the corral working with a new horse when Eli called out, Sarah, we got company. The rider was a woman, maybe 30, with 2 small children clinging to her skirts. Her dress was patched, her face gaunt with hunger. She dismounted slowly, like someone who'd ridden too far on too little hope. I heard you help people here. As Sarah walked over, reading the desperation in the woman's eyes. What's your name? Ann. Ann Whitmore. My husband died. Bank's taking our farm next week. I can work. I'm strong. Her voice cracked. I just need my kids to eat. Sarah had heard variations of this story dozens of times. Each one still hit her like the first. You're hired. Ann, bring your children. We got a school teacher. Comes 3 days a week. Ann collapsed. Not fainting, but just surrendering to relief. Sarah helped her up, steadying her. I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by living, by showing your kids that the world has mercy in it. That's payment enough." Anne nodded. Tears streaming, Sarah showed her to the bunkhouse, while Eli took care of the horse and helped the children, a boy of 5 and a girl of 7, find their footing in this strange new place. That evening, at their weekly gathering on the porch, Anne sat quiet and overwhelmed while her children fell asleep against her sides. The fiddle played, stories flowed. Sarah watched it all with satisfaction. This was the life her father wanted for her, the one her mother would have chosen, the one Martha had deserved, the one Eli had finally found. Redemption wasn't a place. It was a practice, something you did every day, with every choice, with every person you helped stand back up. "You look content," Eli said, sitting beside her. "I am. For the first time in my life, I am." "It's a good look on you," Sarah smiled, watching the sun set over her land, over her family, over the life she'd built from the ashes of being left to die. "Yeah, it feels good too." And for once, the buzzards stayed away. The end. Sometimes the rope that binds us isn't made of hemp and wire. It's woven from words we believed about ourselves, from people who walked past when we needed them most, from chances we thought we'd never get. Sarah's story reminds us that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about refusing to let the past erase us. Eli carried 10 years of guilt until he learned that saving one life could honor all the ones he'd lost together. They proved that family isn't always blood. It's the people who cut you down when everyone else keeps riding. It's the second chances we give and receive. It's choosing to build something beautiful from the broken pieces. We all have our trees, our signs declaring we're not needed anymore. But we also have the power to prove those signs wrong, to reach out when someone's drowning, to accept the hand extended to us, to transform inherited pain into deliberate joy. That's what makes us human, not our perfections, but our persistent refusal to surrender to darkness. What rope have you finally cut free from in your own life? Have you ever been someone's Eli? Or has someone been yours? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.